Hi, my name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're looking at Lords of Hellas and we're asking ourselves the question, what the hell type of game is this? We're also going to find out if huge ambition in design for a board game can ever be truly fulfilled. And finally, and most importantly, we're going to look into whether an asymmetrical game can be asymmetrical. So let's see how this plays and whether this could be the next game for you. So the object of the game is for one player to meet one of the 4 win conditions. So you've obviously got this big game board here that carries on off the bottom of the screen. You've also got monsters that are going to be terrorising the natives. Here are the 3 monuments to the gods, Zeus, Athena and Hermes. And then each player needs to start with their own player board, hero miniature, hoplites that represent their battle force, and priests that are going to be praying to the gods. There are also going to be quests that are going to be drawn, and tokens are going to represent them in the regions that they spawn. So the first way to win is to become the warlord of Hellas. So each of these small regions make up one larger land that all share a common coloured border. So anytime you move into a region with a number of hoplites equal to the number found here, you then control that. So if you ever then control 2 lands, you win the game. You can become favoured of the gods by controlling 5 different regions where temples have been built. You can become the monster slayer by slaying 3 monsters that spawn throughout the game. So here we're representing Cerberus's combat card. So whenever you hunt a monster, you'll enter a sub-game, if you like, where you're going to be using the combat cards that you gain throughout the game to try and defeat them. Finally, you can become the King of Kings. So you'll be building these monuments, which each have 5 parts each. And once it's fully built, if you control a region with a fully built monument in for 3 consecutive turns, that's the final win condition. So each player turn has a slightly unusual sequence in that you can take any or all of 4 regular actions, and then you signify the end of your turn by taking 1 special action. So the 4 regular actions are as follows. You can move a number of hoplites equal to your hero's leadership skill to an adjacent region. You can similarly move your hero a number of spaces equal to their speed. And here Perseus has moved into a region with a quest, and quests are going to give you access to certain rewards and generally act as a waiting game, so you'll wait a certain number of turns to complete that quest. We then move to the special actions. So first off, you can usurp, and usurp is an easy means to gain control of a region so long as you have a glory token for that land. So you gain glory tokens from slaying monsters and from completing quests, and that just gives you an easy means to gain control of a region. You can build a temple, and you can only do that in a space similarly that you control, and that also has a pre-printed space for the temple. And whenever you build a temple, that's how you're going to gain access to your priests. And once you do, you place that in the priest pool on your player board. You can hunt a monster, and to do that your hero needs to be in the same space as them. You'll then refer to the monster's reference sheet, because to try and inflict wounds on them, you'll need to take combat cards that you've gained access to throughout the game and match the symbols on here to inflict wounds. Then the player to your left will act as the monster and will draw combat cards themselves to represent the monster attacking. You'll then need to choose whether you can discard cards equal to those attacks values, or if not, you're going to be taking an injury, which means no matter what one of your attributes are, you're going to flip this counter here so that that attribute stands at 1 until which time you're able to heal those injuries. You can recruit, and you can do that in any region with a city that you have control of, and generally that means adding 2 hoplites to that region. You can march, and that means you can then march any number of hoplites in a specific region to an adjacent one. And anytime hoplites enter a region with enemy hoplites, then a battle will commence. And that's a very similar process to hunting a monster, in that you're going to be adding the total strength of your miniatures. Each hoplite equals 1, each hero adds 2 strength. And adding any combat card attack values to that, and then the winner wrests control of that region, and the loser then has to retreat to a neutral region. You'll notice these used action tokens have been placed on the special actions, because that means you can only use each special action once, until which time that one of the players uses the build monument special action. And it's at this point that that player will add the next tier to a god's monument of their choice. So that's how this game plays. What did I think of it? So what's so good about the game? Well, first and foremost, an applause for the fact that they've nearly made it a perfect mesh of all of these disparate mechanics. I say nearly because there are some loose ends in there and some misconnections, but bravo. Bold Ambition has been largely executed as well as you could expect. Everything comes together nicely into a cohesive gaming experience. Secondly, what a wonderful theme. I know theme is subjective, but this hybrid sci-fi mythological Greek type setting, it just is fantastic, and the fact that it's complemented by absolutely phenomenal miniatures is just icing on the cake. Production quality across the board is of a really high standard. Then it's got this sort of sandbox-like feel to it, but it's still got the narrow confines of some mechanics and set win conditions. But what that does is it gives you a sense of what can I do differently this time, a real sense of replay, a highly replayable game. And that each win condition and each path you go down is fraught with its own perils and its own ability for you to play as strategically as possible. So what's not so good about the game? Well, there can almost be too much going on at any given time, and I say that in reference to the learning curve, which is quite steep. And that's because, for one reason, the turn sequence is a little bit jarring. Some crossover in the regular actions and the special actions make for, in the first few playthroughs, a lot of referring back to the rulebook. And again, the rulebook is a little bit hit and miss. It actually looks like they had a plan with the rulebook, but it's just not been executed perfectly. You've got to go to and fro more than I'd like, so that element is a bit of a weakness. And there is always going to be one downside to Ambition, that you're probably, no matter who you are, going to get more out of this when you play a certain way. So if you're a glass half full type of person, you're going to focus on the positive. I really enjoyed hunting that monster or building those monuments. But if you're a glass half empty person, perhaps you're then going to focus on those areas of the game that you didn't like. So at the outset we asked the question what type of game this was. Well, it is more or less just an area control, area movement and hand management game with some conflict resolution in there as well. So these are all familiar mechanics to us, it's just got a hell of a lot of window dressing that goes with it. So we've also found out that a Bold Ambition, if you put the right people on it, you spend the right amount of time, put enough impetus behind it, you can get more or less near that perfection level of fulfillment. And finally, how can you not praise such a game and its place in the market? This is one that deserves any or all success that comes its way. So with all that being said, Dice vs Cards are going to give a final score of 8+. And that plus is simply just to acknowledge that wonderful ambition and almost uniqueness to the game. However, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.
Professor Benji here. The word Lord derives from the Old English for breadkeeper, and Hellas is simply the translation of Greece.